We now have a short presentation on emerging technology, securing identities across your entire attack surface from Tenable. May I invite on stage Mr. Sudeep Kumar Das. Over to you, sir.
All right. I hope I will take lesser time than what has been allocated to me so that we can go on. We talked about, we've been alluding to identities multiple times, and that is what would be the idea of. You've heard Tenable, many of you would have heard Tenable talk about vulnerabilities for the last 20 odd years, vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. And we finally realized that it is a half-yearly exercise or a quarterly exercise to remove vulnerabilities, and it has always remained just a compliance activity. It never really became a security tool. How many would you agree on that? Vulnerability management being a compliance tool versus a security tool? Any show of hands? Maybe a little exercise? Anybody who thinks it's a more of a compliance tool than a security tool? Okay. I see one hand, and that would be I know that's the reality. That's how assessment of, securing systems have been as far as vulnerabilities are concerned. So what we needed to do, and it is not that it is by design, it is because when I am removing vulnerabilities, am I really stopping attacks? That answer most probably was never a straight answer. Even today, when you go to IT and ask, please patch this vulnerability, you are not telling them that if you don't patch this, tomorrow I'm going to get hacked. It is just that I need to mitigate this, or I need to patch this vulnerability, not really because of, I hope I'm just being very honest and brutal out here. The idea was I needed to show the data in such a manner that really made an impact if not corrected. And one of the glue points around that was identity. And that would be what I'll try and explain. And I'm sure intuitively you will also realize that identity is the key. We have been talking about identity being the new perimeter. And I'll try to just make a framework around it in my next few slides. Okay? Right, so we've been doing this vulnerability and misconfiguration. This gives me hundreds and hundreds of rows of issues. We are supposed to close them every 6 months. We will continue to do this for, whatever time software would be there, because software will always have vulnerabilities and software will have misconfigurations. No amount of GenAI is going to stop that, right? It's still going to be there. And this is only going to grow bigger and bigger. Today we are talking about my critical servers, which might be 500, 600 in, or 5,000 in number, but these are only my critical servers. That is what I've been focusing my vulnerabilities on. But the attack surface, again, I'll quickly go through this. Attack surface is much bigger than my critical servers. If I really am talking about security, it is not just my critical servers, but also the path to these critical servers, right? And that path, of course, is all IT systems, all applications, all IoT devices in a banking environment. It's more of the IoT devices, which means if you're running your own data center, your fire suppression system, your building management system, camera system, they're all paths to a hack, right? It may not be very, very prevalent today, but a big headline in the near future will again catapult all of us into start thinking IoT. I'm not being a doomsday speaker here, but that's the reality, right? And then, of course, the adoption of cloud. That again brings in another set of digital assets, which are more configurable, which are more shared responsibility, but those are still a responsibility as far as the misconfiguration is concerned for the organization to remain secure, right? And the last one is, of course, the assets that you do not know actually belongs to you, right? This is what technically we talk about is attack surface management or shadow IT or many other different terms that we use. IT that belongs to us, but is not really, I'm not really responsible for it because it's not in my asset list, right? So it is going to, I mean, if just for 500 of IT devices, the number was unmanageable, if I add up all the others, it's just going to become unmanageable square or any whatever. I mean, it becomes big. Is it really going to help me with security? No, it's going to give me more headache because you're only giving me more vulnerabilities and more misconfigurations to fix, which do not yield any impact as far as security is concerned, right? And on top of it, if I know that I have configured all my systems well, but the identity is compromised, then everything is useless. A hardened system could be compromised if the if the access is not done properly. Right? So all my hard work, good work that I did at the misconfiguration and vulnerability layer goes off. Now, identities are two kinds. Identities are human, which is the business part of it. I am a business, I'm an approver, I am a creator. So that's the part of it. And then there is the machine part of identity, service accounts, which you really cannot put a role on that service account, whether it's a creator or a approver, or an Active Directory account, or a cloud account. These are accounts that are needed for the systems to run. These do not fall under your identity management. Typically, they do not fall under your identity management governance processes. These are sitting out there doing their job because it's needed for the system to work in that manner, right? Identity which doesn't have a expired password setting because it's just how the application works. These are, I'm talking about the machine identities which are sitting out there and just needed and you leave them. And those remain misconfigured, right? What we are doing today is we are making all of these a list and giving to be mitigated without really knowing how it really is impacting my security, right? Sorry. But we do know that if I have to bring in security context, I need to be mapping these two. Kill chain that I talked about earlier, there are phases, there are aspects of vulnerability and misconfiguration when put together becomes an effective attack, right? So that correlation between vulnerability and misconfiguration allows me to prioritize what really is important from a kill chain perspective, and not just high, medium, low, but this is going to get exploited and these are not. You can easily take some more time to do this, right? And this misconfiguration will happen across all of these, but then it still, if somebody is not compromised, all these vulnerabilities will remain unexploited, right? So think about it. You will see almost every attack has an identity aspect to it. So the correlation of the misconfiguration and the vulnerability to an associated identity is an important bit of context setting that we need to do as far as security prioritization is concerned. And that is what leads to an attack. Okay, we talked about it. And this context today is missing in the processes that we are defining. We have defined the attack surface and we have defined all of these assessment technologies. They remain siloed, no context. And that is what, is going to catapult this vulnerability management program in any organization into what we call as an exposure management program, which is what we want to introduce. Exposure management provides me the real critical context. It is not hundreds of vulnerabilities, but one critical problem that I need to solve today. Not 6 months down the line, but today. Not a quarterly patch, but today. That today is what is going to save me from an attack tomorrow. I hope I'm making the context of where I'm going with exposure management. Exposure management makes sure vulnerabilities, misconfiguration, access permissions, etc. are correlated. Today, I'm running different tools. Today, I have this data siloed. We have always seen siloed data brings very little thing, but today, the same thing we are repeating ourselves. We have siloed data. We talked about software composition analysis. It's a siloed tool with a OAS top 10. They are two different tools. The container security scanner and the vulnerability scanner are two different tools. No correlation, no context setting. I need a SIM to do it most probably, but SIM is not in this space. So I need exposure management to do that particular correlation, right? And this correlation, of course, has to be done. I talked about earlier a correlation between machine identities, two kinds of machine identities, one in the cloud, one on-prem, and there are many more such machine identities. All of these needs to be contextualized, need to be prioritized into a cohesive, insightful, manageable number of insights, which can be closed today for an attack that is going to happen tomorrow. Again, I'm repeating myself, but that's the idea, that I will not give you hundreds of vulnerabilities to fix, but I'll give you the most important one that needs your immediate attention today. Right? So that's the idea of exposure management. From an Tenable perspective, we have built that particular platform which allows me to find these data out. We have also gone ahead and tried and making sure if you already have invested in a solution, you shouldn't be required to rip and replace. I should be able to take third-party data from that siloed solution, put it into my exposure management, but I'll look into the data from an identity perspective as well. Make sure that I provide the entire context of an attack, the possibility of an attack, whether it's a misconfiguration, whether it's an identity, whether it's a permission, what's the impact of it, what's the radius of it, what is the blast radius of it, etc., etc. So all of those make sure that I am able to direct my efforts in stopping an attack from happening rather than just being compliant of removing vulnerabilities in my environment. With that, I'll conclude. I am sure I am less than 15 minutes. Thank you. I've got a thumbs up there. Any questions? We have our booth back there. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Das, for your insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now take a short tea break of 10 minutes. We'll assemble back by 3:05. Our RBI guests are on the way and will be joining short. One request from all the person who is standing behind to kindly please take a seat once you are inside the hall.